What if you came home one day, and found a stranger living in your guest room, eating your food, using your tablet, and claiming your entire house as their own? What if they told the police that you were the intruder, and the cops believed them? Sounds like a nightmare, right? For Marcus Bennett, this wasn't fiction. It was real. And what started as a bizarre encounter with a freeloading man and his manipulative sister quickly spiraled into a life-or-death standoff that would uncover a massive, racially charged conspiracy stretching from local HOA boards all the way up to a corrupt police chief. This isn't just another Karen story. It's a ticking time bomb of entitlement, power abuse, and quiet bravery that will leave you questioning how safe anyone really is in their own home. You won't believe how deep it goes. Or how one man's refusal to be erased exposed an entire criminal network hiding in plain sight. Before we dive in, drop a comment below and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another unbelievable true story like this one. Let's get started. My name is Marcus Bennett. I'm a senior systems analyst for a cybersecurity firm based out of Dallas. After grinding through 3 back-to-back 16-hour shifts troubleshooting a massive server breach, all I wanted was a quiet weekend to decompress. I was running on espresso shots and muscle memory, but before heading out for a 4th emergency call, I decided to check my home security system one last time. I live in Brookhaven Oaks, a quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood with manicured lawns, monthly potlucks, and a reputation for being peaceful. I'd bought my house 2 years ago after a rough divorce, needing space to start over. It's a 4-bedroom ranch-style home, comfortable, spacious, and, until recently, entirely my own. The guest room had always been more of a storage locker. Some unopened boxes from my old place. A treadmill I barely used. A set of weights still in the packaging. Nothing in there suggested it was in use, until that morning. I was grabbing my laptop bag when I heard it. Crunch. It echoed through the ceiling. Not a creak. Not a raccoon. A full-on potato chip crunch. I froze. Then came the unmistakable sound of a long, drawn-out burp, like something out of a frat house. My heart stopped. Brookhaven Oaks is safe, sure, but not immune. A year ago, some local teens had broken into a neighbor's garage, thinking it was abandoned. It wasn't. That guy came home to find a kid passed out on his sofa playing Fortnite. Was this that again? I grabbed the old wooden bat I kept near the front door. Just in case, and crept upstairs. The guest room door was slightly ajar. From the hallway, I could see a figure sprawled out across the bed like he owned the place. A big, round guy in his 30s, shirt stained with pizza grease, shorts riding dangerously low, and a half-eaten party-size bag of Cool Ranch Doritos resting on his belly like a badge of honor. And there, on the nightstand, was my missing tablet, the one I'd searched for all week. I opened the door. He looked up at me mid-chew, utterly unfazed. "Oh," he said, blinking slowly. "You must be Marcus." "I'm Travis. Karen said it was cool if I stayed for a bit." I stood there, silent. Karen? I didn't know any Karen. Certainly not one who had the right to loan out my house. I felt the anger building, rising past the exhaustion, past the disbelief. "Your sister Karen?" I asked, ice in my voice. Before he could respond, I heard it, footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Then the front door slammed open with a thunderous crack. "Travis," a shrill voice screamed. "Get down here right now." Whoever Karen was, she had just arrived. And I had a feeling my weekend had only just begun. Karen exploded into the room like a storm wrapped in polyester and privilege. She wore a navy blue blazer with silver HOA pins glinting on the lapel, black slacks perfectly creased, and a wireless earpiece tucked behind a curtain of hairsprayed blonde curls. She looked like the president of some suburban United Nations, and she carried herself with the kind of confidence only people who have never been told no tend to develop. She didn't even acknowledge me. "There you are," she snapped at Travis, ignoring the fact that we were standing in my guest room. "You promised you'd help me set up for the HOA brunch. It starts in 30 minutes. Then she looked at me, and everything in the room shifted. Her eyes flickered over my charcoal gray work suit, the Louisville Slugger still in my hand, and the expression on my face that screamed, "What the hell is going on?" For a split second, her face twitched, confusion. Guilt? No. Smugness. The corners of her mouth curled into a smile. Not the warm kind. The kind that says, "I've already won." "Well, well," she said, her voice now sugary sweet, "you must be the landlord." "The what?" I asked, incredulous. "Lady, this is my house. I don't rent. I don't even know who you are." She waved her hand as if shooing away an annoying fly. "Let's not play games, Marcus. I'm Karen Hutchinson, HOA president of Brookhaven Oaks. And I know exactly who you are. Single, keeps to himself, works long hours, travels often, lives in a large home with plenty of unused space. It was only natural I thought of you when my brother needed help." My grip on the bat tightened. "You thought of me? I don't even know you." Karen smiled wider. "Oh, but I know all about you. I make it my business to know what goes on in this neighborhood." "That's called stalking," I muttered. "Excuse me," she said sharply. "How do you even know what my guest room looks like?" I asked. "I saw it when your movers were here. Door open. Boxes. Empty space. Wasted potential." "Wasted?" She cut me off. "Travis needed a place. You had one. Simple as that. I was just facilitating a community resource reallocation. Resource reloc. This isn't a commune, Karen. This is my house." "You're being unreasonable," she snapped, suddenly dropping the fake politeness. "You're acting like some," she stopped herself just in time, but the implication floated in the air like smoke. "Some, what?" Her eyes darted to the bat in my hand. She took a step back, but it was performative, calculated. The next moment, she pulled out her phone and began dialing. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm calling 911, she said calmly. "You're threatening a disabled man and his caregiver. In our residence. You're what? Are you out of your mind? This isn't your—" "Yes, hello," she began, interrupting me and speaking into the phone in a breathy, terrified voice. "I need help. I'm at 1487, Willowbend Drive. There's a large black male threatening me and my disabled brother. He's got a weapon, some kind of club. Yes, we're barricaded in the bedroom. Please hurry. I think he's on drugs." The words hit me like a slap. I stood there, frozen, while Travis, still chewing Doritos, asked, "Do you have any salsa?" She ended the call and looked at me with the satisfied expression of someone who had just pulled the pin from a grenade and thrown it into the room. "The police will sort this out," she said. I looked at the open door, the wide eyes of her brother, the phone still glowing in her hand. And I understood something in that moment. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a trap. 10 minutes later, the sirens started. 4 squad cars pulled into my driveway, lights blaring, tires kicking up leaves from the curb. 6 officers fanned out onto my front lawn, weapons holstered, but hands twitching near the grip. The lead officer, a barrel-chested man with a silver mustache and mirrored sunglasses, walked up to my porch with purpose. "Ma'am," he said to Karen, who had run downstairs to greet them. "We got your call. Are you and your brother safe?" "Yes," she said tearfully, voice shaking with theatrical tremors. "But it was terrifying. He just came in here with a bat, yelling, threatening us in our home. The officer turned toward me. And you are? Marcus Bennett. I own this home. The owner, huh? The officer said. One of the younger cops behind him chuckled. Do you have documentation? I gestured toward my office. I have the deed, utility bills, mortgage statements. Don't move, the officer barked. Keep your hands visible. Suddenly, I had 6 cops watching my every breath. I hadn't even raised my voice, but I could feel the danger hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. I'm going to show you my ID, I said slowly, pulling my wallet out with 2 fingers and handing it over. He studied it. Frowned. This could be fake. It's a government-issued license with holograms and a barcode, I said. Why would I fake my own address? Karen interrupted. He's squatting. The HOA has documentation showing the house has been abandoned. Unkempt lawn. Mail piling up. Several neighbors reported it. That's a lie, I snapped. Do you have proof? Yes. Where is it? I stopped. The moment I said, office, again, I knew they'd see it as a threat. Reaching for documents could be twisted into reaching for a weapon. And that's when the worst happened. Turn around and put your hands behind your back, the officer ordered. On what grounds? Suspicion of trespass, assault with a deadly weapon, and disturbing the peace. As the cold steel of the cuffs locked around my wrists, I realized I wasn't being detained because they believed her story. I was being arrested because she knew they would believe it. I could hear Karen and Travis whispering behind me. I think we did it, Travis said. Does this mean we get to keep the house? Karen hushed him, her tone dripping with satisfaction. Let them take him. Once he's out, the legal side is a formality. I turned toward her, eyes locked on her smug face. You know this won't last. You're falsifying documents, impersonating a government body, she smiled. Oh, Marcus. You poor, naive man. You still think this is about truth. This is about perception. And in their eyes, she nodded toward the officers, you're a violent intruder. And I'm the concerned white woman protecting her disabled brother. She leaned in. Welcome to America, sweetheart. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. Marcus? Are you okay? It was Mrs. Ellie Richardson, my next-door neighbor. 72 years old, retired school principal, and a proud widow with an iPhone in her hand. She was recording. And she wasn't happy. I've lived next to Marcus for 2 years, she said loudly. That man owns that house. I've watched him mow his lawn, bring in his mail, fix that garage door. This is his home. The officers paused. Murmured. Looked at each other. Karen paled. There is no HOA, Ellie said, now marching up her own porch steps for a better angle. Brookhaven Oaks has never had one. What kind of scam are you running? One by one, the pillars of Karen's story began to crack. Her authority. Her documents. Her fabricated identity as HOA president. And as the officers listened, phones began to emerge from other porches. Other neighbors had heard the commotion. And they were filming too. In a matter of seconds, the narrative shifted. I wasn't the threat anymore. I was the victim. And Karen? She was the architect of a plot that was just beginning to unravel. The cuffs had just been removed when Karen made her move. With one sharp glance around and a whispered command to Travis, she darted back up the staircase like a raccoon caught in a trash can. Travis followed her instinctively, though the man looked like he could barely jog, let alone run. The officers shouted, but neither of them stopped. They're barricading themselves, one officer yelled. Officer Kowalski grabbed my shoulder and pulled me to the side. Marcus, you need to stay out here. This isn't over. He wasn't kidding. From upstairs came the sound of furniture scraping against the door. Drawers slamming. A loud thud. Then silence, followed by a sound that made my stomach turn, the unmistakable metallic clack of a revolver cylinder spinning. Karen had found the gun. It must have been Vanessa's, my ex-wife's. She was paranoid about safety after her last apartment was broken into. I never used the thing and had honestly forgotten it was stored in the old nightstand up there. And now it was in Karen's hands. Officer Murphy and 2 others were already scaling the stairs, weapons drawn but lowered. I could hear Karen's voice, hysterical, rambling, unhinged. They lied to me. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Morrison promised. Morrison said they'd make it look legal. That stopped me cold. Morrison. As in Chief Morrison. Kowalski heard it too. He looked at me, pale. Did she just say Chief Morrison? I nodded slowly. Yes. She did. Karen was shouting now. Her voice was thinner, ragged with panic. If I'm going down, I'm taking all of you with me. Travis's voice trembled from behind the barricade. Karen, what's happening? I thought we were helping people. You said this was good. Then I heard something I never expected. A shot. The sound shattered the air, a deafening crack that made everyone on the lawn duck instinctively. My front window exploded in a spiderweb of glass. Screams rang out from the neighbors. But no one had been hit. The bullet had been fired upward and outward, deliberately away from people. Karen wasn't trying to kill. She was trying to escalate. She's staging a hostage situation, I said aloud, turning to Kowalski. She's going to say Travis is being held against his will. Right on cue, Travis's voice rang from the window, help. She says bad men are after us. She says they want to hurt me. Murphy's radio crackled. She's got him believing we're the threat. He's helping block the door. Kowalski looked completely torn. We need SWAT, he whispered. You can't call them, I said. You and your guys responded to a call based on false reports. SWAT shows up, they ask why 6 of you were already here. They ask who made the call. They ask what Morrison knew. It unravels. He stared at me, eyes wide. There it was, the truth none of them wanted to admit. This wasn't just a Karen problem. This was systemic. And every passing second made it worse. I can go in, I said. What? She doesn't trust you. She doesn't fear me. I might be able to get through to her, before she does something we can't take back. I can't let you do that. Then what's your plan? Another shot rang out. Again. High. Wide. Into the sky. Kowalski was shaking. All right. But you go unarmed. You so much as flinch wrong, my team will bring you down. I'm not the threat here, I said. I hope not, he muttered. Inside, the air was heavy. Dust floated in shafts of sunlight cutting through shattered glass. My own home felt foreign, hostile. I climbed the stairs slowly, hands raised. Karen, I called, gently, I'm alone. No weapons. Just me. Go away. I can't. Travis is scared. You're scared. We don't need to add blood to this. A pause. Then the shuffle of furniture being moved. The door cracked open slightly. One bloodshot I peered through. Why are you here? Because this isn't how you want this to end. You wanted me gone, not dead. This is still your chance to walk away from it. It was supposed to work, she whispered. They said it always works. Morrison told me, people like you never fight back. People like me. She flinched. I didn't mean, yes, you did. And that's the root of this, isn't it? You thought I wouldn't resist. That I wouldn't matter. Karen's voice cracked. You think it's easy? Watching your neighborhood change. Watching everything your parents worked for just slip away. Change isn't a threat, Karen. People aren't a threat. You are. You manipulated your brother. Lied to the police. Forged documents. Stole my home. It wasn't supposed to be forever, she said, almost to herself. 30 days. Just long enough to establish tenant rights. Then I'd file a restraining order. Then sell it. Easy. Travis's voice wavered. Is that true? We were stealing. You said this was community service. I stepped closer to the door. Travis, you didn't do this. Karen did. You were a piece in her game. But you don't have to stay in it. Don't you dare turn him against me. Karen shrieked. Trevor, I said, gently. Open the door. Come out with me. Let's end this. A long pause. Then, click. The door opened. Travis stepped out, face pale, eyes damp. I don't like this anymore, he said. Karen stood behind him, holding the gun at her side. She looked deflated. Her blazer was wrinkled. Makeup smeared. The queen of the cul-de-sac, dethroned. Footsteps came up the stairs. Kowalski. Weapon drawn, but lowered. Karen Hutchinson, he said, voice firm. You're under arrest for home invasion, false police reporting, conspiracy to commit fraud, and more charges pending. Karen didn't resist. She just handed him the revolver and whispered, he wasn't supposed to fight back. I looked her in the eyes. That was your first mistake. The news hit like a tidal wave. Morrison wasn't just corrupt, he was orchestrating a network. Files uncovered by federal agents showed detailed plans to target Black and Latino homeowners across multiple counties, using HOA complaints as the wedge. He had allies. Officers. Karen wasn't the only HOA president in on it. When the arrests were made, cameras rolled. My video testimony, paired with Mrs. Richardson's recording, triggered not only local outrage, but a national debate. Travis was cleared of charges. Instead, he was placed in a supervised program downtown. He started work at the local Safeway. I visited him once a week. Karen's trial was swift. Her fake HOA bylaws, the bogus management company, the police coordination, it was all exposed. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours. 8 years federal. No parole. And me? I was just getting started. Congress called. I flew to D.C. to testify about how racism hides behind paperwork, behind city ordinances and HOA committees. By the end of the year, new legislation was on the table, stricter oversight of homeowners associations, federal tracking of property fraud, mandatory police camera accountability. Mrs. Richardson. She became a celebrity. Civil rights groups called her the recording angel. One morning, I opened my mailbox and found a letter with no return address. Just a note inside, your story helped us. They tried the same thing. But we saw you on the news. We knew what to do. Thank you. Signed, the Martinez family, Phoenix. That's when I knew, exposing Karen wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I'd been a systems engineer for 15 years. My job was to find problems, and fix them. Now I had a new system to fix. America's. And I wasn't doing it alone. 3 months after the standoff, my guest room, the same room where Karen had staged her last stand, looked entirely different. What once held tension and trauma now served as a quiet home office, filled with warm light, framed legislation, and the scent of fresh coffee. I kept the broken window glass from that day sealed in a jar on my desk, not as a trophy, but a reminder. Saturday mornings had become a tradition. Mrs. Richardson would stop by at exactly 9:00 a.m. with her homemade cinnamon rolls and a folded copy of the Brookhaven Sentinel. We'd sit on my porch, sip coffee, and catch up. Her laugh had a healing quality to it, like wind chimes in the middle of a storm. "Morning, Marcus," she said, handing over the paper and a tin foil-wrapped plate. "Trevor got his first paycheck yesterday. He's beaming like a lighthouse." I smiled. Trevor had been one of the more complicated pieces in this story. The courts had ruled him mentally unfit for trial, but rather than see him institutionalized, I offered testimony and advocated for a supervised independent living arrangement. With help, he landed a stocking job at the grocery store down the road. He was thriving. "He's even talking about going to night school," Mrs. Richardson added. "Can you believe it?" "I can," I said. "He just needed a chance." We sat in silence for a while, looking out at the street that had nearly become my prison. Neighbors waved now when they walked their dogs. Strangers honked and gave thumbs up when they passed. My once quiet block had become a symbol. And that symbol had power. The ripple effects from Karen's conspiracy continued to spread. A federal task force had been established to investigate HOA fraud and abuse. Over 100 fake or exploitative HOA groups were now under legal scrutiny, their records cross-referenced with Morrison's network. Chief Morrison himself had flipped. Facing decades in prison, he provided names, locations, emails. His testimony unraveled an entire backchannel of corrupt city planners, title agents, and rogue appraisers. What began as one woman's entitled overreach had exposed an entire underground system of legal theft. A month after Karen's conviction, I received an invitation to speak at a National Justice Summit in Atlanta. My panel was called, "Quiet Wars, the Hidden Mechanics of Legal Displacement." I told my story not for sympathy, but for education. Afterward, 3 families approached me in tears, saying they'd been dealing with eerily similar issues and didn't know where to start. That night, I decided to start a nonprofit. Reside Right. Its mission was simple. Protect homeowners from fraudulent HOA practices, provide free legal aid for those targeted by housing harassment, and educate the public about their rights. Within 2 weeks, we had over 4,000 applicants for assistance and 300 volunteer lawyers. Donations poured in. Mrs. Richardson became our honorary board chair. She looked so proud, sitting beside me in that press photo with her church hat slightly crooked and a clipboard in hand. Trevor volunteered too. He'd help send out mailers and organize legal resource kits. The first time someone called and asked if he was the guy from the Doritos story, he blushed so red we all had to stop working to laugh. I never expected my life to go this direction. From systems engineer to activist, from isolated homeowner to community leader. But life has a way of rerouting us when we're too comfortable. A few weeks ago, I stood in front of Congress again. This time, not as a witness, but as a consultant. One congresswoman told me, "What you did was remarkable, Mr. Bennett. You didn't just stand your ground. You turned it into higher ground." That line stuck with me. The sun was setting one evening when a familiar knock came at my door. I opened it to find Trevor, holding an envelope with shaky hands. "This came for you at the Reside Right mailbox. Thought you'd want to see it first." I opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter. No return address. It read, "Mr. Bennett, they tried to pull the same stunt on me, fake HOA, legal jargon, a mysteriously urgent lease buyout. But I remembered your story. I recorded them. Called the right people. Got the right help. Because of you, my daughters still sleep in their beds every night. From one father to another, thank you." Tears filled my eyes. I looked up at Trevor, who was watching nervously. "They're learning," I whispered. He smiled, slow but certain. "And we're teaching." That's how the legacy of truth works. It doesn't stop at the courtroom door. It walks into neighborhood meetings. Into schools. Into voting booths. Into the hearts of people who refuse to be silent. Karen thought I was just another man she could erase. But instead, she helped reveal something far bigger than either of us. Not just a broken system. A fixable one. And fixing it. That's how we win. Together. It was a cold, gray Tuesday morning when I got the call from a small legal aid group in Chicago. They had a case. A bad one. A woman named April Mendez, a nurse and single mother of 3, was being forced out of her home by what appeared to be a newly formed HOA, except it didn't actually exist in the county records. Her story sounded too familiar: mysterious citations, escalating fines, and finally, a fake eviction notice posted on her door. It had the same fingerprints. Forged bylaws, untraceable management contacts, and a sudden appearance of uniformed officers ready to mediate. I flew out that weekend. When April opened the door, she looked exhausted. But she also looked defiant. "I've been documenting everything," she said. "They think I'm alone. I'm not." I sat at her kitchen table, looked over the files, and knew instantly, we were looking at another copycat. Possibly even a leftover cell from Morrison's operation. I turned to her and said, "You're not alone. We've seen this before. And this time, we're coming in prepared." We filed injunctions, contacted state officials, and pushed April's case into the media spotlight. Within 2 weeks, the entire scheme unraveled. Multiple arrests were made, and her home was declared secure under court protection. It was the 8th confirmed case Reside Right had helped stop in just under 6 months. Trevor kept track of them all on a big whiteboard in our office, like we were detectives from a TV show. He even used red string to connect the pins. "Helps me think clearer," he said. Every time a family kept their home, we added a green pushpin. By spring, we had over 50. Our work began expanding fast. Local governments reached out for training. Law firms offered pro bono hours. Retired judges sent letters thanking us. One even volunteered to sit on our advisory board. But not everyone was thrilled. Anonymous threats came in, emails, letters, even a rock through the Reside Right office window one night with the word "traitor" written on it. Trevor had a panic attack. I had to sit with him for hours, explaining that sometimes when you shine a light, shadows push back harder. "We're not the ones in the dark," I reminded him. Still, we tightened security. Mrs. Richardson took it upon herself to start a neighborhood watch. At 73 years old, she walked 3 blocks every night with a flashlight and pepper spray. She called it "Walking for Justice." We began collaborating with national civil rights organizations. Eventually, we were featured in a documentary titled Modern Redlining: The New Face of Neighborhood Displacement. The documentary aired on PBS. Then it went viral. I woke up the next morning to a flood of emails, calls, and one message I'll never forget, from a woman in Atlanta. "My parents lost their home to a fake HOA 10 years ago. They never fought it. Thought it was their fault. Now I know it wasn't. Thank you for giving people like us a voice." One day, a man walked into our office, tall, clean-cut, mid-40s. Said his name was Darren Young. He used to be an officer in Morrison's department. "I wasn't in on it," he said quickly. "But I knew. I knew something was wrong. And I didn't speak up. I want to help now." We were cautious. But we listened. Darren provided internal memos, patterns of call responses, even dispatch records that hadn't made it into the investigation. He blew open the rest of the network. That evidence helped us identify and shut down 4 more fraudulent HOA rings in Texas, Florida, Arizona, and Ohio. Reside Right was no longer just a nonprofit. It was a movement. Late one evening, I stood outside my house, the same one Karen tried to steal, watching the wind move through the trees. Trevor came out beside me. He was holding 2 mugs of cocoa. "You think this ever ends?" he asked. I sipped the drink. "Maybe not. But that's not the point. The point is, we fight. Every time." He nodded. "I like fighting on the good side." "You always were," I said. He looked up. "Even back then?" "Especially back then." The following month, the Department of Justice announced the creation of a new Housing Integrity Task Force. I was offered a position as senior advisor. Mrs. Richardson framed the offer letter and hung it above the front desk. "Proof that truth pays off," she said. We moved into a larger office. Hired a team of 10. Expanded to 6 states. And every time someone tried to intimidate us, every smear article, every denial letter, every roadblock, we remembered Karen. And how close she came to winning. We made a vow, no one like her would ever win again. This wasn't just about homeownership. It was about dignity. Belonging. The right to exist where you are without fear. We were tired of being quiet. Now we were loud. And we weren't backing down. In life, it often feels like the odds are stacked against those who try to do the right thing quietly. Marcus Bennett never sought attention, power, or conflict. He simply wanted peace in the home he built with his own hands. But when that peace was stolen through lies, manipulation, and a system rigged to protect the powerful, Marcus was faced with a choice. To walk away in silence, or stand firm and demand justice. What followed was not just the recovery of a house, but the restoration of dignity, for himself, for others, and for entire communities that have long been voiceless. The story of Marcus, Trevor, and Mrs. Richardson teaches us that even in a world filled with injustice, the truth still matters, and when spoken with courage, it echoes farther than we imagine. This isn't just a story about property or legal battles. It's a story about belonging. About standing your ground when people try to tell you that you don't deserve the life you've earned. It reminds us that corruption doesn't always show up with a badge or a briefcase. Sometimes, it arrives wrapped in politeness, bureaucracy, or even your neighbor's smile. But when exposed, it crumbles, especially when good people refuse to let evil pass quietly. The story also reminds us of the power of community. Without Mrs. Richardson, a 70-something retiree with a smartphone and a moral compass, none of this may have been revealed. It shows that our roles in the fight for justice aren't defined by our age, status, or profession, but by our willingness to act. And it reaffirms that people like Trevor, often dismissed or misunderstood, can become not only survivors but symbols of healing and purpose when given compassion instead of judgment. In a time where so many feel powerless in the face of large systems, this story tells us that we do have power, when we document, when we organize, when we speak up, and when we reach across the fence to help our neighbors. Change doesn't come from rage alone. It comes from resilience. From those who are willing to fix not just what's broken for themselves, but what's broken for others. So if this story moved you, if it made you think, feel, or reflect, please consider supporting this channel. Like the video, subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because stories like this, they're not just meant to be told. They're meant to be shared. And together, we'll keep sharing them, one voice, one home, one truth at a time.